Hey everyone, this podcast is part of Story Mode, the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. You can support us and gain access to other great exclusive podcasts at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Hi everyone.
Hello everyone's.
My name is David Bell.
And my name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
I'm thinking of ending things.
Pretty straightforward film.
Jake, my boyfriend.
It's snowing.
Winter is coming in.
We have a real connection. A rare and intense attachment. I've never experienced anything like it. I'm thinking of ending things.
Huh?
What?
Did you say something?
I don't think so.
Weird.
Very, very literal, very straightforward, traditional narrative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally a linear storyline.
Yeah. This came out like last weekend, and there's nothing this weekend, and this is Charlie Kaufman.
Not really
writing
anything
and
new
directing.
this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got a Charlie Kaufman film that people might have already seen. I don't know how many people are watching this movie.
I don't know how many cough heads are out there.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are finishing this movie. They might start watching it and being like, I don't know what this is.
I'm thinking of turning this movie off.
Yeah. Well, what did you think? What did you think of I'm Thinking of Ending Things, Tom?
I liked it. It's extremely Charlie Kaufman though. So
Oh yeah.
if you don't like that, then don't watch this movie.
Yes, that is definitely true. I did enjoy it too. I think I understood it.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. There was I wouldn't say help, but I overheard Michael Swaim from our pals at Small Beans. First, let me just say spoilers right away. Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers
because the twist of this movie is just what the movie's about.
It's not really. I don't even think it's really a twist. It becomes pretty obvious early on. At least I thought.
There were yes, but Swaim pointed out like the last shot means a lot.
Yes, it does.
And it was like, oh yeah, it does.
Yeah.
This is all right. Let's see if our what it is syncs up, because I didn't look anything up.
Okay.
So it's my own interpretation.
Let's start same. Let's start with a fairly straightforward explanation of the plot. It's about a woman going to meet driving with her boyfriend to meet her boyfriend's parents out in the country, and they drive out there during a blizzard. And when they get to the house, things start to be very strange.
Reality begins to unravel.
Right. She starts slipping through time, and the parents keep changing age. Her clothing keeps changing. But her boyfriend, Jake, stays relatively the same throughout the entire movie.
Yes.
And then as they leave, shit also continues to get strange. And then they go to they stop to pick up ice cream because Jake's like, I need it to stay awake. Then they drive along and the ice cream starts to melt. So he's like, I got to throw this out. It's driving me crazy. So he pulls up to his old high school to throw them out. They start to kiss. He freaks out because he's like, there's somebody watching us. So he runs inside. She runs in after him. Can't find him. Meets an old janitor who we've been teasing. We have been teased throughout the film that is Jake as an old man.
Yeah, that was pretty straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward, yeah. There's a dance number where the two younger versions of Jake and this woman whose name keeps changing. At first she's Lucy, then she's Yvonne, then she's Amy.
A lot of things keep changing about her.
If she has no identity.
She has no identity.
It's revealed that she's not actually Jake's girlfriend. She is a woman that Jake saw one time in a bar and didn't even speak to.
Yes.
So two younger versions of themselves have this dance number, and then a version of the janitor intervenes and stabs young Jake to death. And then contemporary Jake and contemporary woman go their own ways. We cut back to the janitor mopping it up, and then he goes out into his car. And then he has a bit of a freak out and then just decides to sit there. He hallucinates a pig. after taking off all of his clothes. The implication of that is that he is entering hypothermia.
Yep.
The compulsive disrobing is a part of hypothermia right before you... It's in Fargo, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Right before you die, you start taking off your clothes because you think you're too hot. And he follows the pig into the school, and then there's in the auditorium. It's an older version of Jake, but not quite the janitor, accepting a Nobel Peace Prize for all of his brilliance that was never recognized. And the audience is full of all of
people from his life.
People from his life, mostly the teenagers from the high school where he works as a janitor.
Yes.
And he sings a song that I think is from Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a recurring theme in the movie.
Yes, it is.
About sitting in a lonely room, but then imagining his life as, everybody recognizing how great he is, and he doesn't have to imagine that he's with that woman anymore. He can go out and be with that woman. But then the song ends with him being like, but then I remember that I'm just by myself alone in a lonely room. And the last shot of the film is the next morning and his truck completely blanketed in snow. So the implication is that he froze to death in his truck.
Yeah. The movie isn't actually about how you started. It's not really a twist, but what the movie's really about is a old janitor working a long shift, and thinking about his regrets, right? And his life.
He's thinking about his life, and I think there's an aspect of dementia there, because all of his memories are colliding, and he's trying to insert this woman he saw one time, and there's also an element we learned, there's an element about how movies, we all watch too many movies. Jake in particular says that he watches too many movies, and the details of the movie start to bleed into his memory. So one movie, there's a funny fake movie he's watching that's supposed to be by Robert Zemeckis.
That was amazing.
It's just full of cliches.
The punchline of just directed by Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah, I laughed out loud.
Made me laugh so long.
Yeah. But that's all it's about. It's about this old man and having a long shift at the high school, and his mind
thinking about ending things.
Yeah, he's thinking about ending things. Exactly.
Yeah, it's bleak, but it's really interesting of a movie. So it kept my attention the whole time, because it is. You're right. The moment they were showing the janitor throughout, I was like, "Oh, that's him old." That's got to be him old.
Well, and he mentions, in the first scene, the first long car scene, the movie is basically two long car scenes bookending a middle section that's him at this farmhouse. But in that first long car scene, we see the old janitor watching kids put on Oklahoma, and then Jake says something about, oh, it's from Oklahoma. Yeah, they do it every year. And then sometimes I see the kids that do it later on in town, and they're older, but I can still tell it's them.
They do a thing where it's do you think maybe he's talking about his childhood and then seeing them when, later? Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's clearly, and as he keeps going, he talks more and more about, from that perspective, about the high school kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's just because he's worked there his entire life as a janitor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about how he feels like he had this potential to him. It's very interesting because he's not, it's a really, it's almost an incel thoughts, but it's not really.
To a degree it is, yes.
Yeah, I don't want to discredit the character that way, but it's a very because it's thoughts that I think a lot of people have. Yeah, that's why I don't want to call it that.
Right, it's more that he's very lonely.
He's very lonely. So he's lonely, and there's this feeling of women are either pretty and mean or too smart for him. The woman in it, his girlfriend, he's meek to her. And he's imagining her thoughts. He's aware of her thoughts too.
He is, yeah, because we should point out that he is not the main character, she is. The main character, from a textual standpoint, the movie is about a janitor imagining thinking about his life and the memories running together and then deciding to kill himself. But what the movie's actually about is a creation of somebody's imagination realizing that they are a creation.
Yes, it's very Charlie Kaufman for that reason.
Yeah,
because she's realizing she's someone's fantasy.
Yeah, because her identity keeps changing.
And she's aware of it. She keeps being like, "Is that my name?
Yeah, is that my name?" And it's she's looking at a picture of herself as a little kid, and then it becomes a picture of him, and she's like, wait, wasn't that me? And like it starts out where it's all, she's this fantasy of an intellectual woman who's, I mean, the actress is attractive, but like not like.
That's why it's very incelish, because she's like the nerdy girl who doesn't know that she's beautiful.
Right. She's not like the two blonde girls that we keep seeing, the two blonde high school girls. She's not like that kind of like obvious Instagram model.
Right. Her studies, like her school studies, I think change.
They do.
The way she speaks changes. In one scene, she's smoking a cigarette and talking like an old movie star while they're talking about an old movie.
Yeah, she becomes Pauline Kael.
Yeah.
Do you remember you see a Pauline Kael book on his bookshelf in his room above all of his movies, and I guarantee you that her monologue is probably Pauline Kael's thoughts on A Woman Under the Influence.
Yeah, you're right.
It's probably verbatim that, because we see, like, at first she's a poet and she recites a poem that she supposedly just wrote, and then we see it later on in a book. Yeah. And then she suddenly becomes an artist during the dinner conversation with his parents. And then we see later that those paintings were actually somebody else's paintings that Jake, as a little boy, used to just copy because he liked the paintings. Like, he would paint them over and over again.
Right. She's a fantasy. At one point, she's acting like his mom.
Mm-hmm. She becomes his mom during the dinner.
She's like cleaning up and stuff. And
matches her personality when she's telling the story of how they met.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the story of how they met changes and stuff. Because, again, she's just a fantasy. She's just this idea of this version that could have been. That could have been with this younger version until he was killed by a janitor. Killed his hopes and dreams, his youth.
Yeah, and I think that's also... Yeah, I think that's also the reality of the fact that he is an old man at the end of his life, intruding on his fantasy as well.
Yeah. There's also little things that, like, I like that every time, because, like, it starts from her being like, I'm thinking of ending things. Right. I'm thinking of, so it's sort of like this fantasy trying to reject him.
The fantasy is rejecting him, yeah.
And every time she starts to bring it up, he says the same thing. He goes, ta-da! And they get to whatever the story needs to get to.
Right, wherever they were going magically appears in front of them with nothing else around.
Yeah. It's very dreamlike. Things like getting the ice cream in the middle of the snowstorm.
Yeah, it's very Eternal Sunshine.
It is very Eternal Sunshine, yeah.
Yeah.
There's little, like, I noticed little clues about the freezing to death. Like, thinking about it, he mentions the sheep who are frozen to death, and he keeps saying, like, they're fine, they're okay.
Right, and at one point, she says aloud, would hypothermia wouldn't necessarily be such a bad way to go. Yeah.
What do you think the basement means? Because the basement has scratches all over it.
And tape to keep it shut.
He doesn't want to go in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get, like, a lot of other things, like you said, the movie, the commercial, like this heavy nostalgia for his childhood that's in there.
Yeah.
Because it's like going through this person's life.
Yeah, it's like his memories. Like I said, I think there's an aspect of dementia in it. Because it's his memories bleeding together, and then all the rooms in his house are labeled. And his dad at one point is
talks about having dementia.
When he's at his oldest point in the movie. I think the basement, because what she finds in the basement is she discovers all of his janitor uniforms in the wash. And
it's like his life.
Right, and all of the paintings he copied. So it's like that's where he's storing the reality of his inadequacy, or the fact that he never really achieved anything.
Right.
Like, I think that's what it means.
Yeah, I think so too. That's because she sees all the janitor outfits being washed. That all checks out.
I think that's what it means. I don't know.
I mean, I think that's as good as an explanation. It's like it's funny. A really like easy way to think of this film is it's the movie Identity.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. It's the shitty thriller Identity with John Cusack, which, spoilers for Identity, all takes place in somebody's head.
Yeah.
And all these characters are not fully aware of that fact. And you could credit it to like you said, this guy probably has dementia. They show that it's, his father had it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he probably had it. And it's like almost like pieces of his brain trying to figure out what's going on. I do think he made, do you think he made the conscious decision to take his life?
Yes.
Or do you think he just got in the car and he spaced out?
He does have some kind of episode when he gets behind the wheel. So yeah, that's a good question actually. But I think he did, because that's the title of the movie, and that's like kind of
right.
There's like repeated allusions to it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it could just be him breaking away from the fantasy, is thinking of ending thing. I don't know. I don't think it matters too much.
Yeah, I think it's both.
Yeah. Because he does seem like confused and scared in the car, and then like you said, he rips off his clothes. He follows the pig.
Mm-hmm.
It's
the pig with maggots falling out of it.
Yeah, it's funny how like I said at the beginning, like joked, straightforward film. It kind of is.
Once you've watched it all the way through, yeah, and
once you know what it's about. I don't know how much this movie confused people, because it did feel pretty straightforward, but I don't know. Maybe if your headspace isn't in the right place and you're trying to think more literal about what's happening in the movie or something like that.
Maybe.
Because, again, you think of a movie like Identity, they spell it out for you. And I think, like, wow, what if they made Identity like this? Like, really trippy.
Yeah.
And, like, nothing matches up and more Twilight Zone-y. That would have been so much better.
It would have been a better film, yeah.
But they were probably scared. They're probably like, I don't know if people are going to get it.
Audiences will be confused if you do that. I think knowing that it's Charlie Kaufman going into it certainly preps you for that.
Yeah, that helps. There's a lot of like...
You're not expecting a literal film.
Yes. If you know who Charlie Kaufman is, and if you know... I think if you're just popping this on... If you're just like, you have no context... Like, because the other thing, I looked at the IMDb before watching this movie and saw that... What's his name? Jake, played by Jesse Plemons, is the only character with a name.
Correct.
So it immediately popped out at me as like, I bet he's the only person who exists. And then when he starts feeling godlike, like he clearly can hear her thoughts at the beginning, everything sort of happens when he wants it to happen. Like he has a certain amount of control over what's going on.
He does, but it's interesting. He can't control her.
Right.
Like his fantasy of, and this often is, you see this show up, and it's a very antiquated idea of what like a quote unquote cool girlfriend is, but it's like she's smarter than him, and she's aloof, and like she's just kind of mean to him. And I mean, he kind of isn't. He's not great either. No, but I think. But like even his like. Because of who he is, and growing up watching movies, and this idea is reinforced over and over again in movies, that like the girlfriend often occupies the same role as like a mom would. Like the best example I could think of is like Pepper Potts in the Iron Man movies. She like scolds him, and he has to like stop making suits and stuff for her. It's like there's this weird conception, like in sitcoms a lot too, where it's like the husband has to like, oh, I can't let the wife catch me, or else I'll get in trouble. It's like it's like they're little boys, and the wife is actually their mom. But she is him. She is him. They're all him, and that's the thing to keep in mind, is the version of himself that we see isn't necessarily the person he is either. Yeah. She represents a portion of himself, the part that is well educated, that's accomplished, or that feels like that has read a lot, has done a lot of stuff. And then there's this version of him that's like apathetic and like keeps hearing this other voice kind of, because that's what it is that like he pitches the Baby It's Cold Outside song to her in the car, and she calls him out on it. She's like, that's a rape song, and starts like giving him crap for it. And it's like, no, this is just, it's him. It's him like self-doubting, or like being hard on himself and not really knowing, like in his own fantasy, almost calling himself out for having the fantasy. Right, like he can't even navigate his own fantasy. Yeah. And then it keeps changing, and like
yeah, I don't know. I don't think she is actually self-aware within his brain. I know because it's Charlie Kaufman, it like doesn't matter.
Right. She is to a degree in this film because it's Charlie Kaufman. Yeah.
Right. But it's not Inside Out where it's like we have little creatures in our brains.
No. It's not that. It's just
yeah.
It's extremely. It's Charlie Kaufman, so it's like meta in a lot of aspects too.
Super meta. I don't know. I really did enjoy it. It's a bleak film. It's a little long. It's an hour and 7 minutes or something like that.
It's 2 hours. It's 2 hours. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes. So yeah,
2 hours and 15.
It is a little long,
but none of it felt like everything felt necessary, which I liked. Like it's like it's not quite a mystery, but it's fun to treat it like that because you do once you figure out the game being played. It's fun to figure out what everything represents, I guess.
Yeah. And like I said, the game becomes, at least it seemed like it becomes pretty obvious, like less than halfway in. You're like, oh, this is entirely inside his mind. And he's the old man, he's the janitor. Yeah,
I almost wonder if it... I mean, he's not trying... I don't think Charlie Kaufman's trying to trick anyone.
No.
But I do think like showing the janitor so early in the film gives it away.
Yeah.
And I kind of like this as more of a twist movie.
I don't know.
Like Identity was.
I just like...
You know what? I just want to watch Identity.
Just go watch Identity. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so the second half of this episode, we're just going to talk about the film Identity.
Yeah.
No, I like that he sets it up early enough so that you're already thinking in that space. And then, like you said, you try to figure out what everything means, or you're just like plugging the rest of these elements in to that train of thought was still a satisfying thing for me to watch.
Yeah, I think out of the context of Charlie Kaufman, I also think it works because a lot of people expect more high concept. Like they expect this to be more complicated.
Yeah, it's actually not even really that complicated.
No, it's just watching an old man's fantasy, and we sort of jump into it. And so you have to take a second to kind of get your bearings. And if you're thinking like, oh, this is like some sort of time nexus or like, I don't know, ghosts or something, I don't know, then you could overshoot it, I guess, assuming there's more to it. But it just reminds me, I don't know, Charlie Kaufman, I think, does a good job at approximating like our brains and our thoughts in a visual way. I think he did a great job in Eternal Sunshine, or at least in a way that's I've never seen before.
Right. Yeah.
Like for example, in this movie and in Eternal Sunshine, there's parts where they're dipping into memories that are unclear. And the way he shoots it is it's almost like in Blair Witch where there's a single flashlight. Like it's very dark and the edges are frayed. And you can't quite see what's going on, and it feels like a dream or a nightmare. It feels like a fading memory. He's very... Oh, I should note that he didn't fucking make Eternal Sunshine, so...
He didn't direct it, no.
He didn't direct it, so he's probably aping what he saw in that film. That's Spike Jonze, right?
No, I think Eternal Sunshine was Michel Gondry, right?
Is that Michel Gondry? I always get them mixed up.
Spike Jonze did.
I think
you're
Malkovich. Right. It is Michel Gondry, because he loves the reverse stuff, and yeah.
Yes, Spike Jonze was John Malkovich.
Yeah. But it does feel like... I guess it's the only fault of the movie, is it's like, well, why not just get Michel Gondry to make this?
I don't know. Michel Gondry was making that Jim Carrey show.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. I don't know. I think it might just be that he's at the point in his career where he can just be like, well, I'll just make it. It's fine. Yeah. He's not like a remarkable... Charlie Kaufman is Charlie Kaufman because he's a great writer. He's not like an especially remarkable director, but I thought this movie was fine. Like it was clear.
I think...
And there was some interesting... Like you said, it did a very good job, and it may just be him aping Gondry, but he did a very good job of presenting the feeling of like time running together and like disjointed memories, and like kind of... It reminded me a little bit of... I still need to finish watching it, but like what I've seen of the third season of True Detective, and how it represents dementia. Sure. So
I think there's I guess what it is that I'm talking in a way in which I feel like this movie is missing something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what it's missing is, like, we're watching it because it's Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah.
And he makes some crazy cool shit.
Yeah.
And there's like a certain like interest in like art that makes me gravitate towards his work. And I really like a lot of his past films that he wrote. I think this movie is missing like the like basic entertainment factor, like framing it as a mystery that's like, oh, it's something to grab onto, it's a reason to keep going. The characters are relatively miserable. The only joy I got watching this
I bet I know what it is.
The parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
when they
they're not
show
in it
up
long enough.
I know they're only in it for about an hour, but when they show up, good God,
they're incredible.
From the first instant, it's Toni Collette and David Thewlis, and from the first second they're on screen, it's just like, oh, now we got a movie. Now this is a movie.
They make the movie. They're so good. They're so fucking.
They're great.
Weird.
I was laughing constantly throughout the middle section, like all the awkward exchanges with their parents, and like when his dad is just rambling on about how they don't care about fucking, but it's going to be hard for them to fuck in a child's bed.
So good. So good. Because again, it's all in his mind, so they're caricatures of his parents.
Right. They're really
they're super embarrassing.
Yeah, they're extreme versions of parental cliches.
Yeah. And that it is very telling, the parents, because he's the whole thing is about him bringing someone to meet his parents.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's like a nightmare. They're a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And he's so embarrassed by them, and they keep talking about how many great things that he's like how proud they are of him and stuff like that. It's boy, those scenes, they're
pretty great. My God.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And they keep getting younger and older. They don't get too young. They only go as young as he remembers them.
Yes. Yeah. But he stays the same.
He stays the same. Yeah. Which is interesting that he's a specific age. And I guess he represents the age in which he feels like he talks about it in one part of like talking about taking the wrong turns. And we all think about it, where it's like because he's talking about being old at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how he's very bitter about it, and they have a conversation about whether or not it's better to be young. And he's like, "Yes, it's brighter. It's full of more hope. It's more fun.
Yeah.
There's so much expectation. There's so much like possibility. It's the best time to be alive, and that's kind of why like younger versions of themselves are what he pictures in the ballet at the end of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this movie is heavy into about nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is an old man feeling nostalgia.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
nostalgia.
It's a feeling once you hit a certain age that kind of I think everyone recognizes and can relate to.
Oh yeah,
you start
even
to be
nostalgic.
Yeah, you start to be nostalgic about being a teenager. Like you think about, man, those are the best days. But that's the reality. Is like no,
or
they
a young
weren't.
adult.
Yeah, no, they weren't.
Yeah. Well, they have. It's. I don't know. There's aspects to it. I get it.
Yeah.
Because like your life's ahead of you. I think about being in like my 20s and like going to England and just walking around all night and the smell of the air and drinking and having fun and running into people and this like adventure feeling that you're Frodo off on a journey as opposed to Frodo going to fuck off with some elves, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I personally love being older. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet, man.
Yeah,
like,
it's
I love being a grown up.
People don't ask you to throw away your like drinks if you're going into a movie theater. Like no one, it's fine. It was
that happened to Marina like maybe 5 years ago. It was at some club back in Virginia where my band was playing, and like this dude knocked his drink over, and he just looked over at Marina, who's just dressed like she normally dresses. I was like, "Yeah, we got a spill here." It's like, okay, man. Looks like you better take care of that yourself.
Wait. He knocked over his drink?
He knocked over his drink and looked over at Marina and was like, we got a spill here. Like, he assumed...
Like, she worked there?
Yeah,
oh,
he
that's
assumed
funny.
she worked there, even though, like, she was just wearing, like, a normal outfit that she would... Like, it didn't look like a uniform or anything.
We're deviating, but the first time I came to LA, I had a really, like the movie Swingers experience. I went to a club because my friend dragged me there, and she just, like, danced all night, and I was her ride. I wasn't drinking. It's one of those things where I'm like, if I could go back and say no, I would have. And I was just dressed in all black. And whenever I needed something from the bartender, she'd come right up to me.
Right.
And then people started asking me where the bathroom was. And then I realized, like, oh, shit, everybody thinks I'm work here. It was fine, though, because, again, like, and one of the best moments is someone dropped a drink and it shattered on the floor. And I, like, waved to the bartender and I said, someone dropped a drink. And she's like, oh, okay, we'll get right on. I'll get someone or something. And she thought I worked there, like, because I was acting like I worked there in that moment, too. Like a real square, giving a shit about a drink
real
dropping.
Fucking nerd.
Yeah, it was not a great night. But yeah, that wasn't even me old. That was me like in my 20s. Yeah, this is... I think that's what makes the movie... Like, this is one of those movies that makes you kind of want to make movies. Yeah. Because it's like, what a beautiful, like, way to depict nostalgia and, like... Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's still a real bummer ending.
It is, but I really like movies like this. One, because we don't get them that often. Mm-hmm. I like when movies are more about, like, they have a whole conversation about art at the dinner table in which David Thewlis absolutely crushes it. But she's trying to explain, like, I paint landscapes that are like I convey kind of an emotion through them, and he just doesn't understand. He's like, how can you convey an emotion if there's not, like, how can a painting be sad if there's not a person in the painting being sad? Like, I don't like, and they go back and forth about it.
And she's like, well, if you're in the painting, you can't see yourself. And he's like, I could look down and see my feet.
Yeah, because he says, I'm not a ghost.
Yeah.
God, him and Toni Collette are so fucking good.
They're so good. Her weird laughter.
Yeah.
Like, they're like ghouls. They're ghouls.
Yeah.
Because, again, they're like his like embarrassed, weird view of his parents, not as humans. They're like super parents, you know?
Yeah.
They're like everything we think about our parents, like, exaggerated.
Right. Yeah. They're fucking hyperbolic versions.
Her saying genus versus genius.
Genius, yeah. She keeps
and him just losing his fucking mind.
Yeah.
That's such a parent thing.
Yeah. Oh, man.
It's their... God, they're so good.
They're so good. But yeah,
I get why the trailers were like them, these two.
Yeah, it was trying to focus on the weirdness as a hook.
Yeah.
Because that is the hook. It's what I still need to watch it, but from what I've heard, it's kind of similar to what Mother is like. In terms of it's just fucking weird as shit.
Yeah. I've said this before. I didn't realize that Mother was an allegory, a clear allegory, because of my upbringing. I did not know the Bible well. Mm-hmm. And it's like really obvious. So when I saw it, I was just like, what a weird fucking movie. Yeah. I bet it means something.
Yeah, I need to watch that shit.
What I did take away from it is it's with Mother, it's a really good, like, how nightmares work. Mm-hmm. Because how adult nightmares work, where it's the idea of something is going on that's sinister or disruptive. Like, yeah, like it's the classic, like the nightmare where you can't find a bathroom, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And everybody around you is not only unhelpful, but seems like there's nothing unusual until you're like screaming at someone, you know? Mm-hmm. That's what Mother is. Not with a bathroom, but it's the idea that everybody around her is just like, what? What are you upset about? Well, this very upsetting thing is happening around her. Mm-hmm. It's and the way they do that, like, I know it has other meanings, but it's like a really, like, from the way it was pulled off, like execution, I thought it was really good. And this is kind of the same thing. Is I really like the execution of this. Yeah, I'm more. I think that, like, it's just very bleak.
Yeah.
or not even bleak. There's moments like the dinner scenes are great, but they're so awkward. And when they're in the car just talking, and it's dark and gloomy all the time.
And it's a nightmare. Like they're not vibing at all.
Right. Like I don't know if I can recommend this movie to certain people because it's like it's not entertaining the way movies normally are. Neither is Mother.
Right,
where it's
but
like you're watching like a thought experiment. You're watching like a painting.
Yeah, essentially that's kind of what this is. It's conveying a very specific emotion, I guess. I don't know. It's watching a guy's fucking memories bleed together with his fantasy of a companion.
Watching the final thoughts of this guy.
Basically, yeah.
Before he goes and freezes to death.
And in his fucking truck.
Like imagine like it's like Warner Brothers pitch meeting coming in like, okay guys, here's the story. It's the thoughts of an old man as he freezes to death. And they're like, okay, and that's it.
That's it.
That's the movie. And it's like, you better be Charlie Kaufman. Because
well, even Warner Brothers, I mean, obviously, like they're like, no,
Netflix.
Absolutely not Charlie Kaufman. And Netflix is like, we'll give you $20 million for that.
Yeah. Because Charlie Kaufman, there's the generation. This feels. I know he's not a boomer. I don't think he's a boomer.
I think he's more Gen X. I don't know. He's like what, 50, 60 around there.
This might be a Gen X thing. Actually, there's this generation of filmmakers who were basically the first to do this, and that's their thing. Like Tarantino or Charlie Kaufman, where like they're like, all right, this is going to be my thing, and they're just like, great, we're going to give you money until you die. A lot of them, I think, had money to start. I don't know, but like they got away with being like Charlie Kaufman's the only person to do Charlie Kaufman films, right? Mm-hmm. Or like Hunter S. Thompson's a good example, where he's like, I'm just gonna do drugs, and they're like, cool, man, we'll pay you. Mm-hmm. And it's like no one else gets to do it.
Yeah, nobody else gets to do that. Okay, he's 61. Yeah. He might actually qualify as a boomer.
Okay, where they got in there first. And it's like, you bastard, you get to make movies that don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, it still does make sense, but yeah. It's not like, it's not a traditional form of entertainment at all. I don't know if we weren't doing this for a podcast. No, I'd probably still watch it in one sitting. What am I saying?
Yeah, I would watch it. I was excited to watch it.
I was too.
But then.
I think people are going to be kind of like, I think if you don't know Charlie Kaufman, the trailer implies like horror movie.
Yeah, and that's not what it is at all.
It's not. It implies like, oh, are the parents wizards? You know, where it's like, what's going on here? And it's not that at all. It's just an exercise in like, what would this look like? Mm-hmm. If we had to visualize this specific thing happening in this person's brain, what would it look like?
Yeah, and I really like that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's well done. Maybe a tad too long, but other than that, like
I don't know. Did you see Synecdoche, New York?
I did not.
Synecdoche.
Yeah. Nope.
I saw it once, and I need to watch it again because I think a lot of Charlie Kaufman's movies hinge on how sleep deprived or like what time of day, because that was a movie that I saw when I like hadn't gotten sleep. Mm-hmm. And that movie's also long. It's like 2 hours, and I think it's a mood thing where it's like when it's really surreal like this, it's just you have to be in the right mood for sure.
Yeah, you have to go into it kind of prepped. You're like, okay, this is a Charlie Kaufman movie. It's going to be weird. It's not going to be a linear narrative. It's going to be something meta in some way.
Like, as you said, you haven't gotten around to watching Mother. When is the ideal time to watch Mother?
Right, like every time I feel like, I think today's the day to watch Mother. Like I bring it up on screen. I'm like, not right now. It's the same thing with like Room. I haven't watched Room yet because every time I get ready to watch Room, I'm like, I don't think I'm ready for this right now.
And I do want to tell people this isn't a depressing movie. It's a bleak movie, but there's a beauty to this nostalgia. Like it's almost still, it's sad where he's coming from, where this person's coming from. Mm-hmm. But there's like a weird beauty to watching a person go through their head like this. But I am glad we watched it for a podcast because I suspect this is one of those movies where if we didn't, it'd be sitting on the shelf for me for a while. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, going into it, like, I have to be prepared for this movie. I have to be paying attention. I have to be in the right mindset. It's a weird one.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. So I'm glad I watched it.
Me too.
I don't know what much else there is for us to talk about in the movie, since we pretty well
I don't know. I'm sure there's a bunch of more artsy shit to discuss. I'm sure there's more details that we didn't notice.
Yeah, probably
along the way. But like, I really can't stress enough that just watching it for David Thewlis and Toni Collette, just being absolute maniacs,
just fucking killing it. Oh, there was one scene that I wanted to bring up where it's towards the end of the movie when they're driving back to the city, and he brings up David Foster Wallace, and I was just like, jump out of the car. A dude mentions David Foster Wallace to you, that's the biggest red flag.
Yeah, that's a big old red flag.
Leap out of the car.
This movie, he's a series of red flags.
He really is. Yeah, he really is. He constantly corrects people. He's like real. Yeah.
What did it mean when she goes to get the ice creams and the girl who's like represents kind of her
in a way
tells her, I think the idea is that she has no identity because she's 20 different girls he's met in his life.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Or seen
in his life and put all this bullshit on.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean when that girl is like, you can stay here? You don't. The future is.
She does. Yeah, you don't.
Bad.
Right. You don't have to keep going forward. I think that was like meta, in the sense of you don't have to continue forward with where this fantasy is leaving. You can stay in this portion of it. You can stay in this memory, because if she continues to go forward, she will cease to exist.
Right. Oh, that's true. I didn't think about it that way.
Mm-hmm. That I have no idea if that was the intent was, but that's how I interpreted it.
The most literal version of this is that these are in fact sentient portions of his brain, trying to survive in his brain while he has dementia is like taking over.
Yeah.
Dementia and depression.
Mm-hmm. But
fucking bleak.
Yeah, it is, but not like weirdly like not depressing. Like, even though the final shot of the film is like his tomb, literally. It's like his truck completely covered over with snow.
I think it's because it's almost clinical. Like, you're watching it in this way of like, I want to see how the film does it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, and again, this might be a problem with the film, is that you can't really grab onto any characters. It's not really a mystery. It's not a thriller. There's no like, a character who needs to accomplish a goal, right?
Other than like she wants to go back home.
I think this is what makes Charlie Kaufman versus the movies he writes different, is that a lot of those movies, I think they do they like, after he writes them, I assume Spike Jonze or Michel Gondry or I guess George Clooney in the case of Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, they go through and they like make it more digestible.
Mm-hmm.
And so like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind has a lot of this stuff, but the main character you're rooting for, he has a specific goal. He is trying to save the memories of someone he loves.
Yeah.
And there's a beginning, middle, and end. And this is more like, I guess that's why I'm almost not invested in the character, because his goal is, it's just a series of thoughts.
Yeah, I don't care about him. Like again, the main character is the woman.
Yes. And she, at a certain point, also doesn't matter, because the moment you realize she's not real, because like when she puts her head on the dad's shoulders, for example, and that one scene, that's a big giveaway, of course, that she's not real, because she's showing affection for the father that she doesn't know.
She's become his mom in that scene. If you notice, her dress changes, and she's wearing a pearl necklace and pearl earrings.
Right. So you do feel for her, but she's an abstract concept.
Yeah, and then her final scene really is when she reveals, like, she finally realizes what she is. She's like, I am a memory of a person he saw in a bar once.
Yep. And she's like mad.
Yeah, she's mad about it.
Yeah.
So I think,
so in a way, she does get what she wants, but she's not. again, she's a portion of him. I mean,
right, but
so
like in terms of the
fact
movie
that
and its
they're-
characters, yeah, like
yeah. But the fact that it's all so abstract, it's hard to feel bad, and then you don't really know him.
no, not at all, really.
So that's why it's like almost clinical. It's like it's a movie that takes place entirely in someone's body. Like if it was a literal movie that took place inside someone's body, like their organs, and we never really met who they were.
Osmosis Jones.
Yes, thank you. That's what it is, right? So we don't really like when he dies at the end. We're like, oh, that's sad.
We get glimpses.
it's-
We get glimpses of it. We know that, like,
We also know a lot about him, but it's just all in his memories.
yeah. So we do kind of know who he is,
Yeah.
and he's not like a particularly likable person. But he's not like a bad person. He's just kind of,
Right.
you know.
I would say Mother is similar because there's not much like it's you're watching it from such a like disjointed perspective. It's like you're in like a fugue state. Like you're on the outside looking in on these characters. So you never feel completely emotionally attached. It's more like just impressed with the craftsmanship of what's happening, I think.
Yeah, no,
And what it means.
I think I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a poem versus a story. In a story, there's you're following characters and very real things. A poem is like an idea, feeling.
Exploring an idea or an emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, so you feel emotions watching this. It's just you don't feel them necessarily for somebody,
Right.
and therefore it somehow avoids being sad.
Kinda. Yeah. I mean, it's still a little sad, but it's not like
Yeah.
depressing.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's.
I think that's it.
I think that's it. I mean, it's a good movie. I really enjoyed it.
yeah. So, like, if you're ever tucking in for the night, watch this. Watch Identity and Mother. Mm-hmm. Do this
You will
movie
have
first.
some
Identity
crazy
next, and Mother.
dreams.
Yeah, take some peyote.
Yeah, take some acid.
Put these three films on, maybe all at the same time.
Yeah, ideally.
Yeah. And you know what? Check out our Patreon.
Yeah, and throw that in there. Throw that on the pile.
Yeah. That's patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We have exclusive podcasts there, like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman and Fox Mulder is a Maniac. They're both great. Check them out.
Indeed. We also have a store, tpublic.com/store/gamefullyunemployed, where you can get t-shirts, masks, mugs, stickers, posters, all kinds of shit. Go there. Or don't. I don't know. Continue living your life. Maybe have regrets in your future about not going to our store.
I was gonna say you become an old person.
Yeah.
You have these fantasies about going to our store.
Like, oh, what might my life could have been had I gone to their store.
Yeah, there's like a version of you wearing one of our shirts, and they're like, "Wait, I don't exist. I'm just a shitty fantasy that your life would have gotten better." But who knows? Maybe if you buy one of our shirts, everything turns around.
Yeah, that could be the turning point.
I can't make that promise. I just can't. Sorry, everyone. I tried to. I can't grift you.
Yeah, you really shouldn't do that. So listen, the thing about David Foster Wallace is
oh man,
leap out of the car if he
leap
says
out.
that.
Tuck in, roll.
Tuck and roll if he says that shit.